Okay, Mick, for a lot of people, younger people, you'll be known more as a TV presenter than you would have been a jockey, them having come into the game later. You're one of the longest serving on TV, having worked for BBC, Channel 4, ITV Racing, At the Races, and now Sky Sports Racing. How much has it changed since you started?
Well, it's changed a lot. Like I say, every race now is televised, so there's no hiding place for anybody. And it's fantastic that, especially for the jockeys now, that they can look back and watch all the races. When I was riding first, I used to get SIS piped into my home, which cost me a fortune at the time. But I wanted to be able to see the replays to see where it went wrong or where I could improve. And that's where I think it's fantastic. And look, this is the modern world that we live in. It's changed a lot. Social media has changed a lot of things. You could say stuff on TV, and unless somebody was actually recording it and played it back, they could actually hear or see what you said or what you did. Whereas now, everybody has the ability to watch, on the ATR player, on the ATR website. If you want to watch all the other stuff, you can just go back and watch it. So there's no hiding place now.
That's interesting. Back when you first started riding, would the stewards have had a recording of every race? Because could you have talked your way out of it in the stewards' inquiry otherwise?
Yeah, well, they did. They had cameras everywhere, and I can remember that was the one thing. When you go into the stewards' room first, it was like this, like every man's dream. It was like 6 TVs covering every angle. If you had that in your home, you'd be delighted.
So when you first started with the BBC,
yeah,
did you get any sort of formal training, or was it just
No, I was very lucky. John Holmes, who has been my agent and for a long time, he organised for me to go and see a guy called Rob Nothman, who does 5 Live radio. And Rob is brilliant. He's still very much part of that 5 Live racing team at the national and for the Derby, and that was a great grounding for me. When I stopped riding first, I had already done work for BBC TV. I'd also had a contract with At the Races as it was then. And then I went to see him, and he definitely helped me. But, look, I think if I watch stuff back now of what I was like then compared to what I'm like now, it's cringe-worthy material, really, because you're so much more aware of stuff now, maybe not as savvy then as I am now. Maybe some people say that I'm still not savvy, but that's the way it is, really.
Anyone that's goes midweek racing, winter, probably just you and a camera. It looks like it's just you and a cameraman.
Yeah.
A lot of places at Newton Abbot, Exeter, those sort of places.
Yeah.
And then of course with ITV, you've got the big team.
Yeah.
You've got all the, so how. Obviously, it's a lot different. I mean, what is it? A lot less pressure when you go to the midweek meetings.
Yeah, it is, I suppose, but it's not something, like that thing of pressure. I think pressure is something you bring upon yourself. And I think the way I look at it now is that I kind of feel when I'm working on TV, I'm chatting to people. So that's kind of how it is. The ITV routine is slightly different because like Ed Chamberlain is obviously our lead presenter on the jump racing. And he's very keen, as is, Richard Willoughby and Paul Cooper, who are the 2 editors, very keen for you to bounce the ball. It's almost like a rugby pass. You have it for a short time, send it to the next person. And that's kind of the way it works. Whereas, like you say, when you're working midweek, you're on your own. So you don't have that luxury of fielding it to somebody else. And you have to do the same amount of work when you're working for Sky as you do for ITV. And in some cases, you could say you should have to do more, because there is that chance that you're going to have to talk for longer about something. So you need to know what you're talking about. And the one thing about television is if you try and bluff it, you get found out.
I was going to say, it seems to us watching you, probably down to your professionalism, that even a midweek meeting just rolls off the tongue, the facts and the figures are there. But how much work goes into preparing for a day at Exeter, not Exeter, Newton Abbot, for example?
Quite a lot. So the night before, I'll make notes on every horse, so that I've got a sheet. I don't know if I've got any of them here. And you'll see I make notes, you know, like how many times the horses run, how many times they run over fences, whether it's a front runner, whether it drops in, ground, you know, what ground it likes, you know, all that sort of thing that is sort of ready-made, really. Yeah, it takes probably, it definitely takes 3 or 4 hours to do a 6 or 7 race card, to go through them, because you've got to watch how horses' races back, see how they're ridden. And, you know, very often now on Sky, we're asked every day we're on course, you know, you need a nap. So you know, you've got to look at something that you think, well, actually, I think this will win today, and you've got to make a note of it. And then, so when you're asked for your opening piece, you know, you'll do ground conditions, you'll do what to look forward to on the day, and then the next question is the one that hurts the most, and they'll say, well, what's your nap for today? So you've got to give it, and more often than not, you know, it'll get beat. Sometimes they win. You know, I was at Force the other day, last race. A very wise man once said to me, somebody asks you for a winner on the day, always give them a runner in the last. Because if you give them a runner in the first and it gets beat, they'll remind you of it all day. And it was just, you know, kind of the way it worked out. You know, I tipped the horse to Jamie Snowden's that won in the last, but that's kind of just the way it goes, you know. But I really like the midweek meetings, because you get to see a lot of people, and it is quite a relaxed atmosphere. You know, I've got to know more people now working on race courses than I ever did when I was a jockey. Because when you're a jockey, you walk in the gate, you turn right or turn left straight to the weighing room, and then you go into your little cave, and you know, it's almost like a big bubble when you're a jockey. Whereas out in the outside world, there's a lot of people who, like you say, that, you know, are there working and doing different jobs, and you never really noticed them before.
No, it's you've led me right on to my next question. Your jockey's career. Hopefully I got this right.
Yeah.
Your first winner in the UK, Lover's Secret at Ludlow.
Yeah.
And the last, April 3rd, 2008, Bring Me Sunshine at Taunton. You rode a double that day.
I did.
So there's 1,303 winners.
Yeah.
How many of those would you remember?
Quite a lot. It's funny, I get a lot of people. I had somebody come up to me actually at Force the last day I was walking on track, and say, oh, you rode a horse for me that Dave Evans trained, that I'd finished third on. And I actually remembered it, because I can remember it was something happening in the race, and it, like, very often you won't remember, and I'll say, oh, look, I'm really sorry, I don't remember. But that's good, because you remember the really good ones and you remember the really bad ones. And if I don't remember it, it means it wasn't too bad. I could probably recall most of the winners, though.
Now, you must have retired because you had to, but you must have retired a happy man looking back at your career, because you rode every big winner pretty much that you could. The 2 top races, the Gold Cup, Seymour Business, and the Grand National Rough Quest. I mean, once a jockey's achieved those goals, is it then just a numbers game from then on?
Not necessarily. There is no place quite like Cheltenham, you know. And I know a lot of people say, oh, it's not all about Cheltenham. If you're a rider, it is, because you want to ride, you know, the Supreme Novice Hurdle winner, you want to win the Arc, or you want to win you know, now the Ryanair has been elevated to Grade 1 status, you want to win that race, you want to win the Gold Cup, you want to win the Champion Hurdle, you know, you want to win the Champion Chase. Now, I always felt like they're like majors in golf, you know, Champion Hurdle, Champion Chase, Gold Cup, Grand National, King George. They are kind of like the big 5 as far as I'm concerned. And I was very lucky, and I won 4 of them. Never won a Champion Hurdle, which is really annoying. Nicky Henderson has won so many Champion Hurdles since I retired. And in fact, the year that I retired, the following year, Punjabi won the Champion Hurdle for Barry Geraghty and Nicky Henderson. And I can remember, it's really, the one thing that's difficult about giving up is, it sounds so stupid. You actually feel like you are somebody when you're a jockey, and especially if you're doing reasonably well, you have like almost like a standing in the industry. When you stop being a jockey, that's gone. You're no longer a jockey, you're an ex-jockey. And one of the, you know, I can remember walking into Cheltenham that year in 2009 and feeling so empty when I walked in there. Like normally I was like so, like the butterflies in your stomach just like walking through the gates, because the anticipation of possibly riding a winner is just off the charts. Like it really is. I cannot describe how much of a buzz there is as a rider when you walk into that place thinking you might ride a winner. Like the hairs in the back of your neck stand up just thinking about getting on that, on riding a winner there, walking into that winner's enclosure. And then to walk in there and not have it. And I can remember walking out that day after finishing my work for 5 Live and going out to the car and sitting there, and like honestly, I'm not ashamed to admit it, I sobbed like a baby, because I felt like a part of me had been taken away. Because it was on that moment that I realised that I'm never going to ride another winner at Cheltenham. I'm never going to experience what it's like to win one of those big races. And it was horrible. And I was almost at a crossroads there, and it took me a little while to get over it. And I then realised, right, okay, that's gone. You have to forget that, and you have to be the best you can be at the job you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going to become a bitter ex-jockey.
And do you think that was magnified because you didn't retire on your own terms, you retired because you had to?
Possibly yes, but look, when I had my fall at Aintree, I was lying on the ground and I couldn't feel my legs or my arms. I couldn't feel anything. And I can remember lying there and thinking, shit. I looked at this crumpled mass on the ground beside me, and I thought, literally, what is that? And then I saw the JP McManus colours, and I thought, shit, that's me. And honestly, nothing was working. And I can remember thinking to myself, my 2 lads were 6 months old and 18 months old at the time. And I can remember thinking, please God, don't let this happen to me. I've got 2 little boys and I want to watch them play. And honestly, you can even see now that it's raw. And that moment in my life changed everything. And I can remember getting the feeling back after a period of time. And my body was literally jumping because it was starting to, I don't know what was going on. And it took me a long time to get over that. And, when you have that sort of trauma, I think is probably the best word to use in your life. And I then got really sick a year later when they realised that I had MRSA quite badly. I was in and out of hospital. I had 7 operations on my throat to try and repair a hole in my esophagus. I went down to 8 stone 2. I thought I was going to die. I really did. I can remember lying in that hospital bed thinking, this is it. You're fucked. I kept losing weight. I used to get up every morning, get on the scales. That was the first thing I ever did, because you want to see what weight you were. I was doing that every day when I was in hospital, and I was losing weight every day. And I was frightened that I was going to die. And honestly, my little girl was born during all that. And it was horrendous, horrendous. And everything changes. Your perspective on life changes. And that for me, riding racehorses, was just a small part of that. Actually living was a big deal for me at that time. So, I got over it quite quickly, the fact that I was feeling sorry for myself that I wasn't a jockey, because there was a bit more to it than that.